Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real World Productivity Podcast. I'm Adam Moody, and today I'm talking with Zeb Evans, the founder and CEO of ClickUp, about his background and leadership experiences, so we can get a better look into this and get some good advice as well as insights into what he's done throughout his life and as well as building this business. So, Zeb, first of all, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Adam. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, let's just jump right into it. Would you kind of help everyone get on the same page? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what brings you up to where you're at now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a long story, but I mean, at a high level is that I've been an entrepreneur since I was born, since I was 3 or 4 years old. I was always that kid that was selling things and creating experiences to sell. And I kind of just stumbled upon tech when I was in college. And had an idea, kind of taught myself how to code, dropped out, built a social media firm kind of back when social media marketing didn't exist. And I found a lot of frustrations through doing that with productivity software. And ultimately, that's what led us to build ClickUp, which is a productivity software platform where you can put like all of your work in one place rather than having to use so many different separate tools, which is exactly what my frustration was. We had to use different tool for engineering versus marketing versus operations. And then we had reminders and docs and chat all in separate places. So we actually built ClickUp as an internal tool at first, just for ourselves, and then kind of realized that our vision for this was much larger and that it would help more people with their productivity needs as well.
Cool. All right. Well, then I'm curious too, just in a general sense, like, have you had any, nobody can see my air quotes, of course, but like formal training or education and productivity, or was it just kind of going through school and then, like you said, kind of starting the agency and then just saying, man, like we need something that can help us out, or how did that work?
No formal training. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's not much formal training you can do for certain things. I mean, if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, of course, you kind of need that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, especially with business or really anything creative, frankly, there's not much that can help you as far as learning from others, directly at least.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. Well, kind of on the same subject, at least, I'm always curious about this with people, regardless of what the answer is. So the first part of the question, I guess, is, do you have any sort of a normal daily routine?
Yeah, personal routine for sure. So I wake up early, wake up at 4:30. I take a bath actually at first, and I write in my journal, and kind of write just what I'm thinking, what 3 things I'm going to do today, things that I'm working on. And then I immediately go for a run or a gym when the gyms are open.
Sure.
And just do something to like wake myself up, I come back, I do just a short meditation. I do like 10, 15 minutes of meditation. That's enough for me to just kind of like, breathe a little bit, reset, and then kind of just do like my, daily hygiene stuff, take a shower. Then I get online and I try to knock out all of my like busy work in the morning. Some people they say that, doing their hardest creative work is best. For me, it's like doing all the busy work. That's what I try to knock out in the morning with my emails and Slack messages, notifications, things like that. And then I feel like I'm kind of ahead of the day and ready to go.
Gotcha. Okay, there's a couple things there. One, that is a good routine. I see a lot of things that I know a lot of people aspire to do. So I want to go back to the very beginning, though. You said you take a bath, so that really stands out. I'm just curious. What is there anything behind that, or is it just like, hey, that's what I like to do, so that's what I'm gonna do?
It's more so just like an intention of sitting somewhere where you're alone and you have to think. That's what it does for me, and then it's just a great place to journal always. So I don't even know when I started the habit of that, but it was several years ago, and I never stopped.
That's awesome. All right. Well, you're the first person that's had a bath as part of like their publicly admitted routine. So that's awesome. I had never thought about it that way. So, okay. And then knocking out the admin. I like that. I agree with you. I think, a lot of people talk about kind of eating the frog, or at least like creatively, like focusing. I feel the same way. I can't do it with like something on my shoulder where I know that like, I've got 5 Slack messages from the team, or that you already checked and there's that one email. Like, I do the same thing. I can't do it. So if I can solve it in less than like an hour, I just do that and get that out of the way. Is that kind of the same thing of what you were talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, cool. So I want to kind of transition over to ClickUp. Total disclaimer to the listeners: I totally drank the Kool-Aid. I'm using ClickUp myself. I think it's a great tool. But with that disclaimer, so I came across this not too long ago. I think I've been using the tool for about 4 or 5 months now. And on your about page, you guys have some core values that definitely is a little bit different than what I think I've ever seen before. So I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. So if anyone wants to, you can go to clickup.com/about and check out the core values. I'm not going to read them all to you guys, but you talk about urgency and consistency. So
Mm-hmm.
how does one tackle that? And I realize this may be kind of contextualized or based in your business and a SaaS business, but can you kind of shed some insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of it, urgency, matters more than anything, I think, in general to what people are doing. I mean, we're here for a very short period of time, and then we're gone. So, I mean, to each their own for sure, but I've just been always, I've actually had 4 near-death experiences. So that also has helped me with like, life is short. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. You got to do what you want to do now. But it helps us a lot in our industry because it's highly competitive. So we just move faster than our competition in everything that we do. And that's always been the core of like how we ship product and how we think about strategy. But the consistency part of that is also, you can't just do something well one day, or 2 days. Like who you are is known by how consistent you are, like those trends over time. Of course, everybody has bad days and you don't judge people for that. But I think it's about doing the things that you do well consistently. And that's how you're remembered and how you're thought of as a team member.
All right. So that makes sense to me. And I mean, I can vouch for it. You guys have a super fast update cycle. Like you guys ship updates like it's crazy. So I'm kind of curious because that I could see personally like working on a level where like you, Zeb, may be able to live that. How do you build a team that can do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think when you build a culture that is just already embedded in kind of our DNA, it's not as hard as you think it is, or at least as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is also you got to get good at hiring people and finding the right people, being transparent also when you're hiring that, this isn't, the Google culture, where you're working a few hours a day and kind of there's no pressure to get anything done. This isn't that type of culture. And there's lots of people that don't want that anymore. We've actually had really good results of hiring people that did that and are tired of it. So everybody's different. It's not for everybody, but as long as you're transparent about that, and you can find the people that want it that way.
All right, so let's dive into that a little bit more. So do you mind sharing a little bit specifically about your hiring process?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it starts with a survey. So when you're applying to us, you fill out a survey. Depending on the role, you'll get different questions, but each of those questions have a lot of thought behind them. Mm-hmm. And certainly, we review that survey, and if it's kind of a pass, then and some of the questions, by the way, for culture fits are things like, how much do you care about work-life balance on a scale of 1 to 10? And if it's people that really care about it, we just know that's not the right fit. It's not that it's anything bad. It's just that it's like, that's not where we are, as a company and a culture right now. So like you got to put those little things in there that are able to give you more context without having to go deep and to waste somebody else's time and your time. But after that, we do a phone call, and our phone calls really are primarily about the person. It's more, listening to what you've done, what you aspire to do, what kind of adversity you've been through, things like that. We look for growth. We look for optimism and happiness. And if we find that, then we move on to a project. And this is just the best process that we found that we can actually evaluate people without starting to work with them. And that project, it matters a lot. It's easy to just say, give everybody a project, but you really have to figure out like what project that is. Yeah. And the easiest thing to do is like, what would they do at a day at work? They're working with you. And if you can find that thing, give that to them. And you've got a really great way of getting insight into how they'll work. Gotcha. And that's really as simple as it is.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good advice. I think this is all stuff too, and I'm trying to think, not everybody has the size of a team that you do right now, which by the way, just so we know, I don't think I even know exactly, but how many people does ClickUp comprise of now?
We're like 130.
Okay. Gotcha. So generally bigger than probably the average person out there with a small business, medium-sized business. So this sounds like stuff that anyone could implement though, right? Just having like a Google form
Oh yeah.
survey, asking the good questions up front, being very transparent, hop on a call with them, and then doing the project too, which is something I've tried to do. Do you, when you hire, will you take on like 3 people, give them a project and take the best one? Or is it by the time you get to the project point, you're generally saying this is the right person?
Early on, when you're smaller, I think you had a choice between a couple of people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody just passes our process, we hire them, regardless of if like there's a role for them, just because we know that they're at least the right person, and we'll figure out where to put them. But yeah, I mean, early on, to answer your question, we did do this even when we were just several employees. We kind of started this hiring process. And of course, it was not nearly as good as it is today, but you just got to start somewhere, right? And you learn from this. I mean, when by the way, when you're doing this stuff, create a scorecard, right? Grade that mini project, grade the interview you had with them. 0 through 10 is completely fine. It sounds so stupid, but you'll have these phenomenal data to go from when you make a bad hire or you make a great hire. You go back and see what were the data points that really stood out, and then you see those trends over time, and you can teach your teams like, look for this trend, look for that trend, and then when you see that, you know that you're going to make a good or bad hire.
Definitely. I like that. I think I'm trying to think of the phrase. I believe what gets measured gets managed. And, you can
Mm-hmm.
identify those trends and say, instead of saying, I think this type of person, you can say, hey, we've given 6 or 7s to these types of people. Like maybe we should, be asking some better questions or something. So
Exactly.
cool. All right. So kind of moving past hiring into leadership a little bit. So in my eyes, if you want to fuel growth, you're talking about consistency while you're dealing with urgency. So having a great customer experience while you're growing, in my mind, there has to be good leadership in place. So, I mean, that ultimately starts with you. So I'm kind of curious, do you have any sort of leadership principles or go-to things that you do or try to do as a leader?
Yeah, we encourage growth, and we look for people that want to grow. So we say grow 1% every day. That's a part of our core values. And by the way, our core, I really like core values shouldn't be bullshit. They shouldn't just be like integrity, that type of thing. Like
Yeah.
they should relate to your culture, and they also should relate to problems. If you have problems with people in your company, employees, then you should be able to relate them to a core value. And if you can't, then you have the wrong core values. You need to change them. And so ours have really evolved over time. But I mean, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, grow 1% every day is just a huge thing that we preach. And it doesn't matter what it is, but just learn something, keep doing, learn something outside of your job, and you bring that in and knowledge share, and it grows exponentially. The other thing is, as a leader, I preach is progress over perfection. Like things don't have to be perfect. I think too many companies, especially tech companies, focus on perfection and they don't go anywhere, or they go really, really slow. Or they way overthink things. It's too much of an analytical mindset. Whereas, customers are not machines. Like they're real people, and they'll talk to you and tell you what they want. And so I think those 2 things are the biggest things that I preach. The other side of this is more of like a libertarian philosophy, in the sense where you can do what you want without much red tape. Like we don't want bureaucracy. We want you to be able to go fast, break things. If you make too many mistakes, you're going to have low believability, and that will change. You're not going to be able to make your own decisions anymore. But at the start, everybody makes their own decisions, and if they have high believability, they continue to make their own decisions.
Gotcha. Okay, so something you said earlier, I can't remember exactly, made me think of Ray Dalio. And now hearing you talk about believability is making me think that you've read
Yeah.
Principles before.
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, we read Principles. It's actually one of our onboarding books. I mean, look, I don't preach that stuff, that the whole Ray Dalio
Sure.
philosophy. It's very extreme, and I think it works in very limited. I don't even know if it works. You talk to some of the people that work there now when he left, and they say it kind of collapsed a little bit. But there is truth to being transparent with people. And there is very high truth to having believability. I mean, it's unconscious whether you see it or not, but if somebody's right most of the time, you're going to believe them and let them do things. And so, yeah, we preach those things. Plus Who, which is like the Netflix culture. It's Patty McCord. She wrote that book. Those 2 books are very good. And at least setting the stage for like what extreme cultures are. And then you can kind of like backtrack from that to get a happy medium.
Gotcha. Okay, and I just brought up Principles. That was something that was interesting for me. I just read it for the first time in the past year, and of all places, like I applied it to reading books because I like to read, but I realized like I was just getting recommendations, and I would just like have this stack of books, and I'd be reading the first thing that was on the list. I'm like, this is crazy. Like it's kind of like letting people dictate what I'm learning. So I had to put together like, here's the book. What's my like, why is this important? Who recommended it? And like, what's my believability of that person in that area? So
That's a
yeah,
good
big
way of
fan
doing it.
of that.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. So anyways, I think that that's someone, anyone listening, you can apply this. Doesn't have to be at, some super sophisticated level, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out. That's a great one to put in place.
Hmm.
Okay, so talking more about leaders, how about now developing leaders with a team of 130? You've probably had to have done some development. What kind of things do you do to, like, do you promote from within? Do you find outside people? How do you deal with now having to kind of delegate the leadership, I would think, at some level?
We try to promote from within when you can. You have to be careful a little bit by just saying that you're going to do that, because you'll create more problems than you solve by saying, oh, we're only going to promote from within. Some people, they're not meant to be managers. They like being individual contributors, but nobody's going to say no to a management position, right? So it can create more problems than it solves. So you have to be careful. But when we can, we certainly choose to promote from within. I mean, my COO started as customer service. Right? He was a customer service guy that was actually a nuclear engineer out of college that wanted to get into the tech industry, wanted to get into a startup, and we gave him a shot. And he worked his way up, and he's could not be a better right hand person right now. So that's a perfect example of promoting from within when it works. But yeah, I would also just be careful about it too.
Interesting. Okay. Well, then kind of circling back around to talking about, your experience as a leader, for somebody who's maybe starting a business or has a small team, what do you think they could do regularly to improve themselves in the leadership area?
I mean, reading is like the easiest thing. I'm sure you know that. It sounds like you read a lot. People have done things before, maybe not necessarily in the same way that you're doing them, but they've done a lot of things before, and you can use their data to just leapfrog things. So I would say reading a lot, but I mean, when I say reading, it's also podcasts, it's also YouTube videos, it's all of the above for just like learning from other people. I think that's the single best thing that you can do. You also can talk to, if you are currently leading people, you can talk to people that you're leading and ask them for direct feedback, and you'll usually get it. Some people are scared to be honest, but you'll usually get pretty good feedback, and then you can take that and improve on it.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Do you have anything else you'd like to share on leadership? Because I mean, we've gone through this pretty quickly, but I find this, it sounds like you've got quite a lot of experience, and I've appreciated hearing all this. Is there anything else you can think of that people might find helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think leadership, the biggest thing with leadership is finding the right people at the right time. So like as a leader, it's really your job is hiring to some extent. Of course, my job is not just hiring, and I like to do 50% kind of like creative work, and then 50%, the management side. But when you're scaling, when you're growing a company and becoming a leader, it's all about who you're hiring and the right time. Also, that can't be discounted. You can't hire people that have they're executives at Dropbox when you're a 10-person company. Like they're just not gonna be able to do anything. They're expecting to have 50 people under them that can do everything, and they're the ones that are managing and leading. So it's all about hiring people at the right time, and that can't be taken lightly, because we've certainly learned by making mistakes and also making phenomenal hires. But at the end of the day, I think that's the single biggest thing in leadership.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. All right, so talking now about ClickUp. So, I really liked it after switching over. Like I said, I've been using it, I think, about 5 months. But I got to ask you too, and you've already mentioned one, I think, Slack, but what other tools do you use, in terms of either productivity, time management, project management, any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we just use Slack and ClickUp. Okay. So those are the two tools that we use. I like everybody asks us, are we going to create a Slack one day, like a chat application? Yeah. And I mean, the reality is Slack does it really well. I think, is there a day when we would do that? Well, there's very possibly a day that we would do that. I mean, we're always going to continue improving and innovating, but we like to build features in a way where it doesn't overcomplicate the platform. Like you can turn them on and off. So if we were to ever build it, it wouldn't be something that came standard onto the product.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned this at the beginning, and now talking about overcomplicating. So, ClickUp is intended and does, solve the problem that a lot of different tools kind of did separately before. So in my mind, when I hear that, I get a little scared, that like, oh man, is this going to become, some sort of monster that, it does everything kind of good, and then there's some problems. So, I mean, it sounds like you said, you can turn things off and on, and I've experienced that. But I guess what's your plan to deal with that? Because that, to me, that's a tough problem.
Yeah, it's certainly something we thought about from the beginning. I mean, what we did was we built a platform where you can everything is developed independently. You can turn on and off pretty much anything in ClickUp, and it still work. You actually don't have the option of doing that today. Like we have Click apps, and you can turn lots of features on and off, especially the complicated ones. But there's still a lot more under the hood that we haven't released yet, where you will be able to have a lot more flexibility and customization. So eventually, when you come to ClickUp, you're going to tell us who you are. Like, have you ever used project management software before? And if you haven't, you're going to get a very simple version of ClickUp, where it's literally just like a task list, and that's pretty much it. And then it grows with you as you grow. And that's kind of what we're working on now. And one of our teams is working on that and using data to kind of figure out where is the best time to introduce new features into the product cycle. Because you're right. I mean, I think when people come to ClickUp, if they use project management software before, they get it and they kind of actually want something more. Usually that's when they come to us. Like, they're like, this wasn't enough, or I had to use so many different applications, or did this but didn't do that. That's like the best use case that people come to us with. But there's also a ton of people that come to us that have never used project management software before. So we want to be kind of exceptional all around, and no matter who you are.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we've got time for a couple more questions here. So one of them, especially with having a company that's growing quickly, is there anything you wish you could have told yourself like 5 years ago?
I would always have told myself, tech. Like, learn more tech, be more competent in engineering, things like that. I kind of stumbled upon it in a certain way when I was not studying engineering in college. I was studying hospitality. I kind of just stumbled upon it, and Treehouse is like an app. TeamTreehouse.com is a web app where you can learn how to code and things like that. And I just did a course, and I was like, wow, this kind of seems like the future. I can just do so many things with it. I can create things for free, right? You don't have to, go build a brick and mortar store and have a lot of capital anymore. You literally can create things for no money. Like, anybody can start anything. So I always would have just told myself that in the past, is like, do it more.
Interesting. All right. Interesting. All right. So last question. You don't have to restrict this to a book, but what book or piece of media or article do you find yourself recommending the most to people right now?
Yeah, I love, there's a book that's like, it's Grow 1% Every Day. And, I think that it comes down to that is part of our core values. And when you get in this mindset of, you can look at all the problems of the world, or what you're dealing with in your business, or whatever it may be in your personal life, and you get to a point where you're just overwhelmed. Like, there's so much to do. How do you solve all these problems? It's really all just about breaking down a really small piece of that problem, like 1%. And that's what the book's called, The Slight Edge, and that's what it's all about. But the theme is just growing 1% every day. So we have all of our team members read that right when they start, and then you kind of just get in this mindset where you don't have as much stress, because all of the problems you have, like, they'll fade away in the future. We'll solve a little bit now. We'll do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And it's always just kind of this optimistic outlook of that, you'll get there one day.
Very cool. All right. Well, I am definitely going to check that out. So good stuff. All right. Well, Zeb, thank you so much. I know I've gotten a lot out of this. I'm sure everyone that's going to listen to this is going to enjoy this. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for your time.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah. So, ClickUp.com, obviously, but what should people do if they either want to find out more about you, or if they want to get started with ClickUp?
Yeah. Like you said, ClickUp.com. There's tons of resources out there that our community has built. If you just search ClickUp on YouTube or any of the social media platforms, you'll be able to find a lot of information. Also, if you sign up for ClickUp, there's a little question mark button in the bottom left-hand corner that has all of our awesome resources that people have built. So that's the easiest way to learn ClickUp and get up and running. For myself, I'm on social media. I'm at DJ Curfew. I used to be a DJ back in my high school days.
Awesome.
So you can find me there, and I always love interacting, with anybody that wants to chat.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much again.
Likewise. Thank you, Ab.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Real World Productivity Podcast. If you know someone that would enjoy this episode, please grab the link and send it via email, message, or whatever means works best. Now, if you're looking for more ways to increase your productivity, time time management and team building skills, be sure to go to productivity.academy/resources to find out what tools, cheat sheets, and services can get you started and make the most impact right now. For those who want to make fast changes and want to save dozens of hours, I highly recommend joining the 14-day Productivity Foundation Challenge at productivity.academy/foundation challenge. This 14-day challenge takes minutes per day, but will help you develop or improve your daily review to get more done with less distractions and loss of focus. You'll also get over-the-shoulder directions for setting up an automation to save dozens of hours and the process for deciding what else you should automate and how to do it. And if you're serious about continuous improvement and you know that productivity, time management, and team building will impact every area of your personal and professional life, join us in the Growth Automation membership. Find out more at productivity.academy/join.